Hey everyone, I'm David Berkowitz, and welcome to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild. And we've got an extra special event today, in part because I don't really have to host it. I've got a wonderful guest host who a kind of dream guest host of mine, Caroline Giegerich from IAB, and most, if not all of you, know the Interactive Advertising Bureau and the amazing work they're doing, and the way that they're connecting brands and agencies and publishers and so many players in this ecosystem, and educating all of us, IAB members or not. And so Caroline's assembled an all-star panel and group discussion for us.
Female panel.
All female panel, all the better, which we need way more of, especially in these AI conversations, and always a priority here. And as usual, for those who might be joining us for the first time, this is also interactive, and so we'll focus on that I part of IAB, and we love community participation here and just hearing what's on your mind. So put stuff in the chat, and when there's time, you'll be welcome to come off camera and share your thoughts and ask some questions. So Caroline, all yours, and I'm excited to be part of this. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you for having us. Really appreciate it. I love AI Insiders. I've been trying to join them as many weeks as I can. You do an incredible job, so really happy to be here. I am going to first just give a quick intro about myself and some exciting work that IAB has, and then I'm going to turn it over to the much smarter ladies to start introducing themselves. Yes, they're shaking their heads. Yes, and get into much of the exciting work that they're doing. So thank you all for having us. My name is Caroline Giegerich, as David Berkowitz said. I'm VP AI at IAB. So that means I host and lead the Center of Excellence here at the IAB, coming up with best practices, standards in the arena of AI for the advertising industry. Today, I'm going to use the international symbol for clapping, especially if you are into jazz hands or if you happen to be a deaf person. International symbol for clapping. We have released an AI use case map with over 200 different use cases of AI across the advertising entire campaign lifecycle, from audience insights to measurement to creative. Labor of love. A lot of people here at IAB worked on this. I'm going to briefly show it to you so you can get the jams, feel the feels, and hopefully use this in a way that's really helpful for you and your organization. So my lovely coordinator, Alyssa, who's somewhere amongst these boxes, is going to put a link to this so you can see it yourself. Audience insights, when you just click into one of these boxes, you'll see all of the ways that you can use AI. I'm just focused on one thing here, which is synthetic audience testing, i.e. using synthetic, i.e. not real audiences to test your creative with whatever type of persona that you want. I'm just giving you a few examples of these so you can understand what you're going to get here. Where synthetic audience testing is really helpful is sometimes either hard to measure or hard to get to segments. Let me make that real for you. If you are on this call and you sell Jaguars, well, it just so happens to be that those folks who buy Jaguars are sometimes not the folks that conduct themselves to taking surveys. So synthetic audience testing could help you. Let's go into another category. I'm going to go with, I should have done like a poll. Assurance, compliance. I like some of these because this is really trying to help you figure out bias and cultural sensitivity. Here, a very important one, using AI to discover malvertising and cloaking detection, i.e. using AI to detect and block malicious ad content. You can see there's a lot in here. You can go to the direct category of interest. If you are a publisher, i.e. the New York Times, a video publisher, Wall Street Journal, etc., you might be interested in this category here, which is using agents to detect IP violations. lots in here in essence, but to turn it now over to the much smarter ladies to introduce themselves. Alicia, Kate, can you please tell us more about you so I can stop talking and tell us where you come from, your titles, all the goodness?
Great. So I'm Kate Martin, and I currently work at Razorfish as a social content engagement strategist with clients such as HBO Max. Today, though, we'll be focusing on my previous role at Bacardi for Grey Goose vodka, where I led many of our global digital marketing efforts, including ownership of our website, search, innovation, all those fun things, and pioneered projects in Web3 and AI. And this is where we'll focus today with the Grey Goose Tailored Toast AI-powered ChatGPT experience, that whole mouthful of a project, which was super interesting, and our SEO work with Google AI Overviews.
Hi, I'm Alicia Yaffe. I'm the SVP of Creative Marketing at Warner Music Global Catalog, also more specifically Rhino Records for our U.S. organization. My job is to expand the audiences for artists who are no longer actively recording for a Warner Music Group label, but whose music is still part of our ecosystem. And it is a delightfully, wonderfully nebulous job that I kind of get to experiment a lot with in my head. And this may be giving myself too much credit, but I imagine my department is sort of the Google X within the Warner system, where we get to try and explore a lot of new initiatives, efforts, technologies, and events to see where we can have the most impact to draw new audiences, grow our streaming platforms, and move some physical units, but generally expand the brands of our artists.
And just to talk Alicia up a little bit more, she gets to work on artists like Led Zeppelin, artists like the Talking Heads. I mean, come on now. I had a very short space of time in which I got to work with Alicia and understand her creativity intimately. But to open this up to both of you, you've each worked on groundbreaking campaigns that weave technology into marketing. Can you give us a snapshot? What were the initial challenges that you were looking at with these campaigns? What were the opportunities for these recent projects that you have been utilizing AI? Like, give us the starter.
So I'll say for us, where I work, there's a different team within Warner that's looking to utilize technology for a lot of what's on Caroline's map. For me specifically, I work more in a public-facing fan engagement effort, and a couple of the projects that I've been involved in or adjacent to include AI remixes of some of our hits, including from War and Roberta Flack, in partnership with Endel, to sort of see how we can get into the functional music space with appropriate artists. There was an initiative led by Warner to do a voice double for Randy Travis, who can no longer sing. And there was a performance done by Notorious B.I.G. in Horizon Worlds a couple of years ago as a cherry on top to our campaign to celebrate what would have been Christopher Wallace's 50th anniversary. And in each of these cases, consent was our guiding principle. If the artist was with us, do they want to do this? Why are we doing this? In the case of Randy, again, he really, really wanted to sing again. He cannot. So this allowed him a new tool to play with in his creative paint box. For the Notorious B.I.G., obviously he's not been with us for a long time, and I am not a medium, but management was led by his desire to sort of remain relevant and use new technologies the way that he did during his career. And we tend to follow, when it comes to estates, the guiding principle of what did the artist do during their life, because we don't know what they would have done, and it's inappropriate to try and guess, but we can use their behaviors to extrapolate and say, based on this, we think that artist would lean into this technology, and given everything else that we've done, here's how we're going to play with it. So those are just some of the projects.
I have a couple of follow-up questions right away. So Randy, how did he lose his ability to sing?
I don't know. It's a medical issue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So you basically were working on technology that cloned his voice so he could sing again. Is that right?
So
Okay.
yeah, so we have been testing out a few different platforms. There's MyVox, there's 11 Labs, there's several others, and we've actually got another project in the works that was the request of an iconic artist who also lost their ability to sing, that we've been working on for a few years to make sure that it is right, and working with their management also to focus in on, okay, if we're cloning their voice, do we do it the way that they sound now, the way that they sounded in their prime, the way that, sort of they would. So it's a real
What's the answer? Give me the
iterative
answer.
process. For the project I'm working on now, it is a combination of how they sounded sort of in their middle years,
Mhm.
and there's a specific demo that we're using for this song, so we know exactly what their voice sounded like on the demo and what it sounded like when they were performing live at this time. So the model that we're using is actually a blend of 5 different
Wow.
iterations of the model that is built on recordings from their 20s and 30s and the recordings from when they recorded this demo that is being built into the song for them.
One more question, and then I'll turn it over to you, Kate. The AI remix that you mentioned early on from Adele, remixed how is that for like Kiss or what it was?
So those we did a set for Roberta Flack that was Killing Me Softly, and a set for War. I think we did Cisco Kid. No, I can't remember. But we partnered with Endel, which is a functional music company, and their promise is that they know how to, and their algorithm and their AI knows how to create music to trigger specific brain states. So focus, sleep, calm, that sort of thing. So each of these remixes, which are all available now, you can listen to them on the Endel app or on your preferred streaming platform. Each has a specific goal brain state. It's called, Leslie, ENDEL. It's a great app. I actually use it every night to go to sleep. And there's not to derail too much, but there is a lot of really, 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 really incredible research going into the neuroscience of music. AARP, 5 months ago, had a whole section on how music helps people with dementia and Alzheimer's reach lucid states. There's a lot of research on specific frequencies breaking up the plaque in your brain that causes Alzheimer's. And then there's also all of these other, thank you, Earl. There's also a lot of other research just going into the science of sound, basically. I'll find the article. It was I don't know why we get the AARP magazine, but we do.
So nothing about age.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask one question from David, and for anyone else who has questions, I'm going to try to get to all of them in line. So David asks, presumably the artist retains IP rights for the music, even though AI was used to clone the voice. Do you know? Yeah.
Yes. So it's really interesting. So we have to go through a process. If we being Warner don't own all of the underlying material being used to train the model, then we have to go license it from whoever does for the purpose of the training. And then it's like, as depending on how we use the model, it's a separate license, for how it gets used out in public. In the case of Endel, Warner owns all of the underlying training materials, and therefore we also retained the copyright to the output that Endel made. So they function for legal purposes, kind of just like a remixer. But we in those cases retained the copyrights. But yeah, it's very Wild West. And there are some other experiments that we're developing right now that are pretty cool, that are
exciting.
Yeah, that are a mix of IP that we own, IP that we've licensed, sort of other rights that we need to get from the artists themselves. So we're really being very intentional about making sure that that rights are protected. We're an IP protection company fundamentally, so we want to respect that while also engaging with the direction that the technology is taking.
Also, Mark asks, are the trained voices considered derivative works?
So right now, because they're only being used within the context of the remixes themselves are considered derivative works. The voices, I don't know. Yeah, the voices that they're used and they're licensed for other things. I should be able to answer sometime in the next year.
And hopefully you don't murder your name, Karan. I'm going with Karan. I just included, yes, nailed it. I included a link to the platform that I like in synthetic audiences. It's just one of many. So there are many great platforms in this arena. Kate, let's turn it over to you. So what were Grey Goose, the starter for, what was the starter challenge? What were the opportunities that you were looking at when thinking about how to use AI in these campaigns?
Yeah. So on my end, and thinking about this from a foundational and frankly budgetary level, which I know we all love, we would first research what areas of our marketing could easily be elevated by AI, either from an efficiency or optimization standpoint, cool PR angle, both internal, which is important, and external, generate brand buzz, among others that only require a light budgetary lift. Budget's going to be a big thing for me here in this discussion, making sure that we're efficient and have an efficient ROI, as well as having some fun. This was a much easier angle to elevate and excite our brand teams about the use of AI outside of our usual campaign structure that frankly had stricter timing and, again, budgetary constraints. But then we would educate if need be for more niche AI tactics, like one, again, I mentioned earlier about SEO and Google AI overviews, which we found to be the answer to my first point on what areas could easily use AI in the marketing pipeline. So
was it more about like consumer, Kate, help us engage consumer, or did someone say sprinkle AI on it?
Sort of both. I think we would tackle and, debate what scope and time we had against campaign versus like general work that we had. And I think for us and giving our current brand priorities, we tried to, again, find something with light budgetary lift. So SEO was a super easy one for us. Obviously, the AI chatbot that we'll get into shortly for Tailored Toast was another easy one for us. So thinking about them from a general point of view, we hadn't quite tapped into it from a campaign perspective that I'll speak about on this call we did previously. But for the use of today, it's more of just general brand building internally, nothing from a major PR angle.
Okay. And just for people on this call who may be navigating their own situations where they're trying to get buy-in on some of these new, more emerging campaigns, how did you frame them to get the necessary buy-in with your leadership teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. And often the first stopgap that we see right apart from budget and pushing these initiatives forward. So to get buy-in and understanding from our leadership and other team stakeholders, we would gather opportunities that are first to market or would help propel us to be more performant in our category. So that was a big one for SEO. Transparently, any buzzwords on innovation were always fun. Brand differentiation, we're key in getting initiatives funded and approved, all of those things. But apart from leadership buy-in for myself and my team, innovation in particular was a big one for us to ensure that our brand wasn't only up to date on the latest tech, but future thinking enough to act on any optimizations to then bolster that performance for the future, rather short or long tail tactics, as we see, for example, the ever-changing environment of how consumers use search. So not as sexy one as Alicia's talking about, but thinking from like a brand baseline perspective, what we could do. That was an easy approval from a leadership angle.
Well, and Alicia, you've got not only Warner Music Group leadership, but you've got talent, management, etc. So for you, it's a multifaceted buy-in situation. What about you? How did you frame with all of those different entities to get the necessary buy-in that you needed?
So I like to start with talent first. I come from the management world, so my general worldview always revolves on how do I protect the artist's legacy? How do we grow the legacy? And when we've had discussions about new technologies, about where audiences are going, about the way that particularly younger consumers are consuming entertainment broadly, not just music, because in the streaming world, as you all know, we are fighting against games and short form video and that sort of thing. So that, there's for our marketing campaigns, obviously just getting the songs out in the world and heard is goal number one. But then we really want to build fans and build community and engage fans. So not only do we know where they are, but that we can help turn them into longer term fans versus, oh, I heard this trend on TikTok, and really get them to invest in the artist. So I start with the artist, explain the idea, I explain the technologies that we're going to use. And to Kate's point, there is a lot of appeal for artists. All of the artists that we've done sort of these tech forward experiments with are already leaned into being innovative, right? Like that is part of their brand. That was part of their vision as artists, and they want to keep evolving and sort of stay ahead of the curve. So we narrowed down on the artists that we consider these experiments with. From there, then went to leadership, put the budgets together, put the projections, sort of the ideas together. The goal with a lot of these experiments is to Kate's point, noise making, right? Is positioning Warner as not only, a very, very innovative label, but as an organization that protects your music, for the entire life cycle and not just while you're signed to Warner, from where I sit specifically in catalog, so that artists want to bring their catalogs here, want to bring their art here, and knows that it won't just be left on the shelf or left to be discovered by accident, on a streaming platform. And then it comes down to budget.
You doubly have that, because just to set the stage for everyone here to understand Alicia's challenge, because she does great work, is she's working on bringing back anniversaries of sometimes albums that have been in market for 50 years. So she has to go out there and really do some incredible magic to make what's epically timeless new again. And so it sounds like what you're saying, that some of these levers help you do that.
Absolutely. I mean, we believe that the artists on our roster are for everybody. They just need to be discovered, right? And they'll continue to connect generation after generation as long as the music is available on the platforms where new generations are spending their time and energy, right? So that consent and authenticity are really our guiding principles for any campaign that we do, but particularly with these sort of bleeding edge endeavors, right? Especially because if, for example, one of our artists is dead, like it's harder to recover from the brand value that you shave off from a bad initiative than if it were, for example, a current pop artist who's going to have some bad behavior and then engage in a redemption arc. It's much harder to do, and you really do permanent damage when it comes to legacy and estates. So we're really, really intentional about what we undertake. Somebody asked a question about tech. So all of the platforms with whom we are engaged with have gone through a really, really rigorous review process by our tech board and by our emerging technologies department. They have to agree first and foremost that nothing, especially when it comes to AI, that nothing is trained on unlicensed materials, right? Because again, we can't be out here and be cavalier about about training on other people's IP if we're expecting people to be respectful of ours.
To your IP. Yes.
Yeah. So on a couple of the platforms, we have company-wide deals. And then on some of them, if I've engaged, for an example, a technology or an agency, I basically submit them to a review board. And then maybe a year later, it'll get approved.
That's work.
And then I can engage them. It's very slow.
Kate, also for you, do you want to speak to the role security and tech played as you were getting things approved at Grey Goose?
Yeah, super important as well. I think from an outlet perspective, making sure we're LDA compliant, 21 plus, all of those fun guardrails that we have for that industry. We had our innovation team and we worked very closely with them and our tech team just to make sure not only one represented the brand correctly, but represented Bacardi well as well. I think ours were smaller initiatives than Alicia's, so we didn't have quite as big of a stopgap. I mean, from an SEO perspective, we got that out in a couple of weeks. Our tailored toast, was 4 weeks total. We did that, so it was very, very quick on our end.
I'm
so we
so
could
jealous.
well, yeah, sorry. It was a bit more seamless. So we didn't have to deal with IP or those things. Just making sure from a brand perspective we were all set in LDA, so it was much easier.
Well, and Kate, I want to get to your tailored toast so we can really understand what this is. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna share some screens so you can have visuals at your disposal. But tell us more about what were you trying to accomplish, and as I get these opened, and what you did here.
Yeah. So tailored toast, you can see we had fun with the name. AI is a different color, so a little wink to what we did. It came about as we were researching consumer needs, as mentioned, in white spaces in the op-ed industry, and found that consumers find giving a toast a little intimidating, which I think we've all been in that position. Thus, the creation of tailored toast to make this easier. It was powered by ChatGPT and included a Grey Goose brand filter to generate limitless toast to again help solve this consumer need. So within the functionalities you see here at the bottom, a consumer would answer a few details, such as occasion category as seen here, like a big milestone, a small victory, social gathering. And then it would populate onto a next screen where it would be a specific occasion, such as a wedding, promotion, adopting a pet, etc. And then we'd ask sentiments, really get into a lot of questions to understand what they were looking for. So in the end, we were helping to encourage people not only celebrate, but know exactly what to say when raising that glass of moments that matter to them. And all done in a way that included the Grey Goose brand voice and brand safe filter as seen here. This is a sample toast that we had that would also include, responses were with the realm of what a consumer would expect. So premium, slightly witty tone against our general filter rules, and obviously blacklisting inappropriate responses, words, or information that would make for negative experience or frankly encourage overconsumption, which is not what we want to do as a brand. So to answer your question on what we were hoping to achieve and did we succeed in that, we were focusing on more actionable metrics such as average time spent. So did they go through all the different questions, number of completed toast completion rate, all those fun things. While I can't provide specific performance metrics, I can say that we did see this as a successful test in the space of AI chatbots with a solidified consumer need as extended time was spent within the experience well over what they would use, on a normal day-to-day on our site. And also to keep in mind, this was all done without the use of paid, which was painful, but we had to do it, as less budget as possible. And it was a focus on organic consumer search interaction. So those who genuinely wanted to use this and help with their toasts. So it was fun. It was
fascinating.
Yeah, it was a good time.
First of all, I think we all need classic dry martinis for the rest of this conversation. And secondly, when you spoke about the brand safety measures, was there anything in particular in addition you needed to do here because it was AI versus your traditional filters?
Yeah, so I think from LDA compliance, as mentioned, just making sure that we were brand safe. The filter, this is actually through Razorfish, incorporated all of this in the back end, and we did a bunch of tests and making sure that it came out in a fun way. It wasn't, it took a couple weeks. This was where I think the weeks came in. So it was interesting. So understanding, how to elevate our enjoyment of life with a little like cheeky toast from Grey Goose.
Absolutely. I told Kate in one of our early calls that I refused to even do a toast at my sister's wedding because I was too nervous about it.
It is intimidating, right? Like, what are you going to say? So it's a little fun to get your thoughts going.
Well, and it's got to be epic, right? Because I was family. So I refused, and I could have used Taylor toasts. Just to follow up, also, you mentioned that you had done something in SEO and AI overviews, and I wanted to hear more about that. What did you do, and where did that idea come from? And also, what results did you see?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love SEO. I love, being a nerd with data and understanding that, foundational website. But I think it's also important to think when evaluating the priorities of your brand leadership team and any budgetary constraints, you'd ideally have the balance of that wow factor that we talked about earlier to excite and obviously entice teams, especially if, they're not super, they don't have a lot of background in AI. Obviously, still with clearly outlined KPIs, you can see I'm a big data person, and then paired with more foundational AI projects. So overall, it's a really cool project, really understanding, when it comes to brand reach and industry differentiation, it really helped us, I think, have a step ahead with AI reviews. But I think to take a step back for those of us who are not as deep in the weeds in SEO as I was, is understanding what Google AI reviews are. And get more familiar with that. So between Google AI reviews or AIO, if you hear me speaking about that, it's a feature within Google Search that uses generative AI to provide quick answers to user queries right at the top of the search page. This came about in, I think, May 2024. So I think all of you now should have seen this. So it's something super easy and surmises, answers and web sources. Obviously, having those sources are super important to dive deeper into that query or double check accuracy. But in regards to brands showing up with overviews, it's actually a happy accident on our end that we were perfectly set up when it launched. Our first more long tail SEO innovation track was to bolster Grey Goose within mobile voice, so like Siri or Google Assistant, where we optimize editorials, brand and industry FAQs, all those fun things, and consistently adding new site content based on what was needed for mobile voice. Having clear language that directly related to top consumer queries and keywords, likely an image, and ideally deep linking other content that's relevant. So by having these optimizations live for almost a year ahead of AI overviews, our clear FAQ editorial content was actually quickly picked up as an AIO source within consumer industry and brand queries, allowing our AIO reach to increase in a short period of time, which is great because as we know with SEO, it can take a long time to read, the benefits there. So based on this, to answer how brands should be thinking about AI overviews, first, audit your site content and research what top consumer queries are relevant for your industry that aren't currently.
How did you do that though? Let's pause. How did you do that?
I had a great agency. We used Bright Edge. We ourselves as a consumer as well. Like, what am I interested in? What are other brands not doing? And I also like to expand outside of vodka as well for alcobev in general. I wanted to be the key source of industry education and not just vodka education. So really had a high bar for the team. So you'll see, hopefully it's still the same, top ranking from not only vodka and the brand, but from alcobev in general. So like, what is bottle service? What is a shot? What do you put in a martini? That type of thing. So it was a bit more general. And then from there, after you find those industry and white space areas that are key to your brand strategy, ideally optimize your site against those key terms and queries on a consistent basis, which is really key here. As we know, the Google algorithm is ever changing and we never know what's going to happen. So you can stay top of mind for consumers. Ideally, this again will be accompanied by a holistic search approach, which includes traditional SEO and SEM tactics to allow organic and paid to work together. And as with search, as I mentioned, ranking with AI reviews can take time. So think of this as a more long tail strategy against key KPIs, such as, impressions and clicks. So you understand your total SEO universe. One last part I do want to bring up, as it has been a hot topic as of recent, is zero-click search. If you guys have heard of that, there have been recent industry articles touching on...
But wait, I saw too many shaking heads. No. Describe first what it is.
Yes, so it's interesting. When searchers go onto Google, they only read the AI overview's answer and sometimes no longer click on a website to search for that information, i.e. zero-click search. So for some brands, especially news sites, that may be seen as an issue as organic search referral traffic likely will decline, while others, as with Grey Goose, may see this as a new path to influence searchers and an evolution to the search landscape. So overall, there's a lot changing in the reviews. It's only been out for just over a year. There's going to be, a lot of evolution and shifts, especially as searchers lean more into AI in their journey for information inspiration. So how can we best attack that now to, again, future-proof our brand as mentioned? So zero-click search is super hot at the moment. That's it in a nutshell, but it's something for us to keep in mind based on your KPIs and just right size what numbers you're looking for.
At least some of the data that we've seen so far on zero-click search, it seems to be affecting, sadly, for those of you here who work at publishers more than brands. But my question for you is, you focused on Google AI overviews, but it sounds like a lot of what you were doing in terms of auditing the questions, the keywords, would also have an effect on how Grey Goose showed up on a variety of LLMs at the same time.
100%.
So,
yep.
Right. So
Yep.
whereas you talked about Google AI overviews, it would carry to Claude, ChatGPT, etc. But also what I heard you say, and I found this interesting just because for anyone on this call who has looked at GEO, AEO, or whatever acronym salad we're using today, you just described it as search optimization. And I liked that because it is still people are searching.
Yep.
Right. So do you, okay, I just want to understand how you as a brand frame this up in your mind, whether it's traditional search, whether it's zero click, as you called it. Do you think of it all as one umbrella, or do you separate those two umbrellas out separately?
I always thought of it as holistic between SEO, SEM, and YouTube search. Frankly, I think all those we need to keep in mind.
But zero click is included there.
I think so. I think it all should be within a holistic standpoint of like, how is my site showing up in search, right? Because at the end of the day, regardless of it AIO, zero click, etc., a consumer should still be going to your site to double check accuracy, because at this point we cannot trust AI answers.
This is the first they've heard of it. No.
Wow, I know, groundbreaking.
Leslie has a question for you. How do you measure? And hey, Leslie, how do you measure the brand appearing in Gen AI searches or Gen Google AI recaps? What was your measurement vehicle there?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that we were toying with for a while. I think right now, simply, it's just impressions and clicks. I don't think that we've gotten too much more than that, apart from the usual SEO page one keyword ranking, which is another part of just holistic search. So I think until we get some more, angles from Google and Bright Edge and other, SEO tactics, right now we're keeping it super top line for just general reach. But I'm hoping in the near future we can get more actionable with it and see how it affects our total, site organic referral traffic.
Very cool. And also, just to go back to the AI use case map, there is a use case in there, Leslie, of companies like Profound, Brandlight, Gumshoe, and what these companies do actually test like thousands of queries through LLMs. They even show you how your brand shows up in Grok versus Google, Gemini versus ChatGPT. And it gives you recommendations because there are different weights to all of the LLMs on how they are surfacing different brands. It gives you recommendations for how you as a brand can therefore show up better, if you will, in each of them. So that's also something. But Alicia, coming back to you, because we just got very technical in the search space.
Love it.
We just went hard on search. I feel like, many things that you do so well over there are in consumer engagement and getting fans really excited about all of these anniversaries and things that you're doing. So how do you think about the balance of reach versus engagement? What is that about? Like, how are you trying to measure success?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, our our driving measurement is, did we sell more records? Did we drive more streams, right? So that is top level what we're trying to do all day, every day here. Because as a record label, we only monetize the sound recordings, right? Which, just if you guys don't know, again, I come from management. So it's been a wild shift for me, because from a management perspective, recorded music is only about 2% of an artist's revenue pie, right? Depending on who you ask, 2%, 10%, somewhere in there. But it's really, really small. Artists are making a lot more money on touring, on tickets, on t-shirts. And we as the label do not benefit from that. But in a streaming world, it's all about, can we remind somebody to press play again? So engagement is really, really key. Reach is really key, right? Because it does, but doesn't matter to me if a stream comes from TikTok versus a stream comes from, somebody hearing it on the radio versus hearing it on a sync versus, we've got all of these ways to remind people, like, you love this song. But fundamentally what we're looking to do and what we're experimenting with is, how can we expand the monetization of sound recordings? And that answer is going to come with new technologies and fan engagement, so that if we can get more streams per fan, that will help us reach our goals of growing the streaming. And then, on another level, if we can expand the fan base, that will help us get there. So from that perspective, it's reach. For some of the AI stuff that we're working on right now, it's about, super serving the super fans, right? That we know will come to an experience, for example, but then also making enough noise that, if people hear about a museum exhibit, some sort of show, a movie screening, or whatever, that even if they don't buy tickets to go to the thing itself, it's in the ether enough and it's making enough impressions to encourage somebody to click play again. So, a great example that I'm not involved with right now, but like the marketing that is going on around the Sphere Wizard of Oz is going to be long-term, much more beneficial when Warner decides to return Wizard of Oz. I think it's Warner and MGM decides to return Wizard of Oz to streaming, release a new DVD, whatever, than the actual amount of people who are going to buy tickets to go see the Sphere, though that is a source of revenue as well. So it's a lot about ensuring that our artists are permeating the culture in tongue-wagging ways than necessarily the number of people who specifically interact with the thing.
That makes perfect sense. We have about 14 minutes left here, so I want to encourage anyone. I have more questions, but also just to make sure that all of your questions from the crowd get answered, please, by all means, just put them in chat and I will continue to try to go through them. But so AI experiments or pilots often live in this like bucket of like campaign land. Now I'm thinking of Wizard of Oz, so like the Yellow Brick Road campaign land. What's the difference between experimenting with AI for PR or buzz, right? And then versus this idea of building AI into the consumer journey for the long haul? And this is a question for both of you.
Yeah, I think that's super important to think about. And the ideal would be position both as equal, right? If we had all the budgets and all in the world and everyone loved AI at your brand, we would have project tracks for each to work on both short-term and long-term initiatives at the same time. But in more of the real world, I think the brand's first use case of AI tend to lean on that marketing buzz, as it frankly excites leadership teams with PR angles and is something fun to celebrate that's consumer facing, right? So i.e. easier to get budgets approved. So even if that means something campaign related like a TikTok filter, that's maybe a lower budget, it gets teams excited there. Hopefully then ideally it would warrant more interest into longer tail initiatives, like I mentioned with SEO and AIO, that don't just have short-term effects. So generating optimized consumer-facing content, leveraging dynamic pricing, all of those fun things are ways to provide those long-term AI marketing avenues for consumer journey efficiencies that aren't, frankly, as outwardly interesting to the masses, but could affect long-term consumer relations if done right. So,
makes sense. Alicia, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kate's absolutely right. You know, the budgets that we've gotten approved for the experiments that we've done so far are wholly because it gets the buzz, and again, it positions Warner in a specific light to our potential artists, to catalogs that we're interested in acquiring, and that sort of thing. And that's really the driving, motivating force from a leadership and approvals perspective. You know, from my personal perspective, it's, you know, I really believe that we have a duty and an obligation to ensure that our artists' art continues to be discoverable. So it's about ensuring that we are well positioned for the future technologies, for the way that consumers are using it. And I think we just don't know yet, but we know AI is involved in the long haul. And again, it's not necessarily where I'm supposed to focus my time and energy, but I know there are other teams in the company that are, to Kate's point, focusing on SEO, AI search, those sorts of things, so that our sound recordings are returned, you know, and delivered in those sorts of ways. And we're also, you know, it's like, we don't want to contribute to AI slop, but again, discovery right now is happening on, you know, TikTok and those sorts of things. So we do a lot of creator campaigns and that sort of thing. And I have a spidey sense that in the future, a lot of that filling of the content machine from our artists will come from AI generated content from our artists that looks like UGC. But we're not doing that yet. We're not using that yet. I hope that's not the future. But we just want to make sure that our artists have the best competitive advantage using these technologies to be heard.
Follow-up question from Mark. Are you tagging the artist's AI-enabled music differently? So this is interesting, right? Like the transparency of it all. Like if you use a voice clone of Randy Travis, does it get tagged separately so we know that is Randy, but not the original Randy? I don't know how to say this.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily being tagged in the public facing metadata, because the goal, and again, it comes down to consent. From Randy's perspective, this is his art, you know, and you don't tag when you're using Pro Tools versus, you know, whatever other recording technologies that you use, but you put that information out there. So when fans want to know, you're also not hiding from it, right? And in the case of Endel, we didn't tag it. It was just like the Endel remix, the Sleep remix, the Focus remix. Because again, most people who are searching that out understand that AI uses these proprietary technology algorithms to make the mixes. And part of the press campaign was to communicate that AI was used to generate this. And with the future products that we have coming out, you know, it will be communicated and it won't be hidden, but I don't think it will be tagged as such, because we are creating output that is meant to be an extension of the artist's art using new technologies, not necessarily highlighting the technology, if that makes sense.
It does. It's the story first, tech second. Yeah. I have a off the cuff spicy question because you mentioned influencers, and now I just gotta know. Would either one of you, just to set the stage, this question is inspired by Vogue using AI models and some discontent in response. So would you, and obviously this is a question for today and there's many more tomorrows after, but would you use, either one of you, synthetic influencers of any kind, i.e. not real virtual influencers?
That's a great question. I don't think I would personally. But I think there is a way to do it and make it efficient based on time. Obviously, finding influencers that can be very expensive. I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite there yet personally. I think there needs to be better transparency other than super small script on the inside of the Vogue ad. I think that's why I think people may have been more outraged. They should have been more transparent about it apart from that. So I don't know. I think it needs to grow on me personally. Alicia, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial reaction, again, for the Vogue use is you're replacing human models, and that is fucked up. But I think when you're using the technology in service of a human endeavor, I'm not mad at it. To answer your question directly about synthetic models or synthetic influencers,
right? Let's say it's like a bunch of synthetic influencers that are like, go listen to the talking heads. We love the talking heads.
We wouldn't do that.
Okay.
We absolutely wouldn't make
That's a no. Thumbs down.
health endorsements. So if you're asking about like what Will Smith reportedly just did, absolutely not, because again, authenticity is our number one guiding light. But if some person out there makes a synthetic influencer that has a huge audience and their synthetic creation utilizes our sound recordings in their videos as part of, an influencer campaign that we're running, like they're signed with an agency or whatever. Like
Michaela. Okay. Michaela's the one that comes to mind for most people, right? Yeah. Huge following, not real.
Yeah. But people know that. And in theory,
it's transparent.
It's transparent. And maybe her creator, would never go on. I mean, that's it. Because, again, just personally, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want audiences. I don't want to build my brand. I don't whatever. But maybe someday in the future, in order to exist in, the metaverse or whatever, I'll need to create something that is an extension of me, or that is that a character that I've created. All right. So yeah, in the same sense, if you treat Michaela like that, she's not replacing somebody. Right? She's somebody else's creation. Yeah, we could use Michaela as an
Got
influencer.
it. And just to follow up on the same line of thought, Jason asks, how are the brands you all work with thinking about consumer pushback against AI generated content, social, music, etc.? So broadening what we were just talking about. Is that a short-term challenge that will recede over time?
Yeah, I think again, the guide for us is how do we utilize AI as a technology to expand interest in and access to our artists' creations, as opposed to a replacement or a misleading thing, and again, not to harp on it, but I think the storytelling that the Sphere team is doing around the why they used AI, right, to change Wizard of Oz is really compelling and is the right way to do it, right? Because nobody would say you shouldn't digitize the film, right? Because if you don't digitize the film, it'll get lost to history. If you don't, the Sphere is a new format, right? And I think AI,
and it was never recorded to be
right, and
around.
It wouldn't work. Cosm took a different approach to doing The Matrix, where the actual film was not edited at all, and they built the world around it, which is another approach, right? So I think the pushback is more towards when you're trying to mislead people, or when you're trying to replace, or extract value from, rather than add value to whatever you're using the AI for.
Yeah,
Yep.
We thought the exact same thing. I think for me, AI is meant to enhance, not replace human creativity, as you were saying, Alicia. So being really clear and transparent in that, and always having some sort of real element to it, right? For us, we had our brand bottle, our Grey Goose bottle. That cannot be touched by AI, right? Because that's our IP. But can we do some fun background or something, hand or a cocktail or whatever? Yeah, I totally agree with you.
But so I've seen demos of folks using AI to place products in all sorts of different shots. Would you do this?
I think that's something
that's would you do? This is the question.
Yeah, as long as the IP of the bottle is not altered and we don't have some 3-fingered person reaching for a cocktail, I think there's ways that we could do
background placement, fine.
Background, cocktail, hand, whatever. But it would have to be on a case-by-case basis. but it could be cool.
Okay. So last question, because I know we're coming up on time. If you could give the marketers in the room one piece of advice when considering AI and their strategy, what would you tell them?
I think for me, just keeping it short and sweet, at the end of the day, you know your leadership team the best. Lean into what excites you and them, coupled with a cool, ideally lower risk idea, especially if they're not as clear as AI, to understand how it can be beneficial to not only you, but your target consumers. So again, this is exciting, right? AI is cool. I mean, unless we fail, we may not learn, right? So I think putting some cool things out there and just really being open to that and having fun and having leadership be excited about it as well. So that's my thought process with it.
Yeah. And I think, any use of AI, consider how it serves your overall goals and values and then integrate it that way rather than using AI as the end goal.
Yep.
And in terms of where should these folks start, Kate kind of answered it in her, by the way, if we don't fail, we don't learn is going to become one of my new mottos. So thank you for that. But in terms of where they start, you're saying go low risk, small, measure results, and then build from there. Is that, Kate? Did I get it in a nutshell?
Yeah, I think that's one way to think about it, but I think it depends on your leadership team, right? I've had some leadership teams who like the big buzzy PR fame angle, right? So I think going back to what we previously discussed, that could be a quick one to then be like, hey, AI is cool, right? I have this, lower funnel search optimization or website, whatever you're doing, YouTube, that can also benefit from this. So I think I may flip it and do more of the big buzz again if you have budget. But I think if budget is the main issue apart from leadership buy-in, think about, what foundational brass tacks Alicia was saying in key open areas for your brand that could easily be led by AI, either internally or externally. So I think it just depends on your team and the organizational readiness of where your team is open to jump in.
Super smart. Alicia, I'm guessing you concur.
I concur. And I also want to draw some attention to Earl's comment down here. To paraphrase, like AI is the journey, not the destination. Yeah. So yeah, just again, remember to look at it like a hammer and not as the house.
I also like where he says, but I don't want to live a lie in an artificial world. Earl, dropping the bombs.
Pure poetry.
Ladies, I want to thank you. I know we're at time, so I'll give it back to you, David, but I want to thank Alicia and Kate. You guys are superstars and couldn't be more grateful for you to be here.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's all I want to echo. Alicia, Kate, Caroline, thanks for organizing this and just being such an incredible host. You are welcome back literally anytime. So you're past your audition now. But thanks for a great turnout. I mean, the amazing questions. I'm still like processing all the incredible questions and comments and from all of you. So we'll be back here next week and keep these incredible guests going. We'll make sure to send the link around to the new research and Caroline, anything else you want to share along with Kate, Alicia, if there's anything you want to point people to check out, then happy to get this in the community and share it in our Slack and newsletters and everything else. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week and just appreciate learning from you all.